I chose the Kansas State Masters of Agribusiness program for two reasons. The first is program flexibility. I wanted to be able to go to school while maintaining a full-time job. The second is that it's agriculturally focused. I intend on staying in the agriculture industry long-term, and this program complements that with a faculty and staff that know and understand my long-term objectives.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Meet the Lawmaker. We're joined by Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. Senator, thanks for being with us today. First, if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and how's it feel being in the Senate after being in Congress for so long?
Yeah, you know, it's a great honor. That's what it feels like to me. I was born a fifth-generation farm kid, and I became a first-generation college student. And not only that, I got to go to medical school. So I grew up around agriculture. Both of our families, my mom's parents, my dad's parents, had 160-acre diverse farms, a little wheat, a little alfalfa, a small herd of cattle. I grew up with that work ethic, spending summers and weekends on the farm, and I just never would have dreamed I would have got to go to Congress and sit on the Agriculture Committee and just enrich that family tradition, one more way to serve agriculture.
And tell me about what it was like growing up on a family farm and how that's kind of instilled values that you still use today.
Yeah, you know, growing up a Kansas farm boy was mostly having fun, just like John Denver's song said, right? So we grew up with family. I grew up with my grandparents. I probably spent more time with my grandparents than my mom and dad. They were both busy working, and consequently, I would spend the whole weekends at the family farm. But it meant, you know, hauling hay all Saturday, but Saturday night we'd make homemade ice cream. And we sat on the cellar, as we called it, and watched the storms roll in. And I just thought that's what everybody did. An 8-hour work day, I didn't know what that meant. My family certainly didn't know what an 8-hour work day meant. But I think we'll talk a little bit later about how important that environment is to me, the environmental issues, the ecology, and their commitment to that farm and ranch and learning some of those things.
And that's what I want to talk to you about. You serve on the Senate Agriculture Committee. Tell me, what are some of those priorities and bills you're working on for farmers and ranchers in Kansas?
You know, I think most importantly is I want to help share the story of American agriculture. Right now in Washington, D.C., the environment is maybe the number one priority for this White House. And it's just interesting to me as I sit down with people across the aisle from me and they give me lectures on ecology and the environment. And, you know, for instance, I was walking over for votes one day, and another senator on the Ag Committee said, "Hey, I just learned about no-till farming. Maybe your farmers should start practicing no-till farming." And honest to goodness, I know in the late 1990s, my farm, we were already doing no-till farming. And I didn't have the heart to sit there and say, okay, wait a second, bucko. Let me tell you about no-till farming. Let me tell you about the terraces my grandfathers made in the 1960s for soil conservation. Let me tell you about the wetland projects that we're doing and all the great things we are doing for the environment already. So I want to help share that story of American agriculture.
You talk about farmers doing things like no-till or these conservation practices now being talked about here in Congress and how they can figure out how this benefits the climate. Where does that discussion fall in, and what should be important as this discussion continues and where farmers fit in here?
Right, and I'm glad that out of the Senate Agriculture Committee we unanimously passed legislation that would help control those carbon markets and how agriculture could benefit from them. I've been through enough of these days to realize that as whether it's the wheat market or cattle futures, the small producers sometimes struggle to manage those. But if there's companies out there that want to pay for carbon capture or soil conservation, decreasing the amount of fertilizer that's going to go into a river, all those types of things, that I want agriculture to benefit from it, we need to be at the table, right? And you know, as they say, if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu.
Now, sticking with agriculture here, another topic now, it's kind of cattle transparency in the cattle markets. Kansas, a very big beef production state. Where do you stand on the issue of trying to figure out something to to fix this problem maybe some other states may have when it comes to marketing their cattle or that sort of thing?
Well, certainly we had those problems in Kansas as well. And certainly all spring and all summer, my phone blew up from friends, people I went to grade school with, 5th, 6th, 7th generation ranchers who are struggling to make a living. People that have had feedlots in their family, for 40, 50, 60 years as well, struggling. I think the first step is transparency. I think what we have to be careful of, though, is not to give too much decision making to the federal government. I'm really concerned if we let USDA start making all the decisions, issuing quotas and issuing prices, that it's going to drive the price of cattle down. So we got to be careful what we wish for.
And also switching gears here, you're a physician. So tell me kind of why that's something you wanted to do and why you wanted to get in that industry and work in that space as well.
Well, certainly since 9th grade, I wanted to become a physician. The family practice doctor that I grew up with was the most respected person in town, and my folks just held him in awe. I was blessed to be pretty good at science and math, and I said, I can do this. And people would say, oh, your parents never went to college, you could never become a doctor. So I just studied twice as hard. I really love serving people. If you think about how important healthcare is to this country, it's so important, so it's great to bring the practical experiences of being a small doctor in a small hospital in a small town.
And you're on the HELP committee, so how does your voice help bring a voice for rural America or these rural states who do have some of the same problems that maybe get overshadowed by urban areas? How do you use that and say, hey, we're dealing with the same things out here in farm country?
Yeah, I think first of all, just having practical experience of realizing when people say, how does a rural community survive? Certainly we need a strong ag economy, but healthcare is a big component of that as well. The biggest struggle in healthcare across America right now is a shortage of nurses and doctors and healthcare support people. So as we're making policy up here, like a vaccine mandate, I just want people to understand that we're going to lose about 10 or 20% of our nurses if we have a vaccine mandate. And we were already in a critical shortage in rural America for nurses, and it's going to double down on that. It's a big slap in the face of those nurses that were on the front line already. And don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of vaccines. I've been vaccinated. My parents have been vaccinated. I'm hoping my parents get their booster shot this week. But the vaccine mandate is going to have a big negative impact. So my position on the health committee, I think that people have to realize I am coming from a position of science, but I'm also coming from this rural America background where we kind of have a libertarian streak down our back. We want the federal government to provide good roads and bridges, secure borders, strong military, but please don't micromanage my family.
Just kind of wrapping up here, as we all know, Washington can be very busy at times. What do you like to do in your spare time to kind of take your mind off all the chaos that seems to ensue sometimes as we're here grinding day to day here in DC? Yeah,
so I've been in DC for 5 years. I've only spent 5 weekends here. I love hunting and fishing. I'm working right now on opening day of pheasant season, who I'm going to hunt with that day. We have a crane and duck season coming soon as well. I love going fishing. Really, I just love going out to my little cabin property and catching some crappie, spending time with family. I've enjoyed all these things, but now I enjoy teaching my grandsons how to hunt and fish. My grandson's got a new air rifle. Don't tell his mom yet. So I'm hoping when he gets back to Kansas to see me this fall, he'll get to shoot his first air rifle, his first BB gun. I always said that if you could become a good shooter with a BB gun, you can easily shoot any other gun later.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Glad to join you. I appreciate Agri-Pulse too. It's still the authoritative publication up here. My staff reads it every day. I used to read it every day. Now they try to read it and then boil down the articles that I need to see. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
You bet.